Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, great. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about feminism first. And I have printouts for you. I have printouts. The first page is actually from yesterday. It's making principal arguments. Second page is feminism. And third page is also part of feminism. So I'm going to give you these sort of in the middle of the slideshow, almost like we did last time, even though I don't think we'll have technical difficulties today. I think the problem was the button just wasn't fully depressed, so it was like the circuit wasn't stable or something like that, but it should be okay today. And there's a lot of things we can talk about feminism. I'm just talking about these because I had good materials available. I gave a talk 2 years ago at ADI, and then maybe even some of you saw this before, I don't know. Were you guys at ADI 2 years ago? Maybe I can't even remember. Anyway, so this is my title. What's the first word? How many people already know what that means? Raise your hand.
It's spelled wrong. Aren't there 2 G's?
Oh, is that? I don't think so. I think there's just 1 G. Yeah, I think it's spelled right.
No, aggression is with 2 G's.
With 2 G's, really? Okay. I'll fix it then. Really? That looks weird. But it does say it's correct in Microsoft Word, so 2 out of 2 must be right. Okay, microaggression. So now do you know what it means?
Yeah, it's like when you're not actually being actively like aggressive against someone, but you're using like these little passive-aggressive things.
Not quite. But that's close. So okay, you'll find out very soon. And second word or second phrase. How many people are familiar with that term? Anybody? Raise your hand. Oh, a lot of people. Okay, so anybody, somebody. Yoshi.
No.
What is it? Male privilege.
Male privilege.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, somebody else. Tatsuhiko. Sorry?
Dominance of the man or woman.
Okay, generally yes. I think it has a more specific cultural meaning, but yes, right. Anybody else who wants to add a little bit? Because I think it's a little more specific, but yes, Daddy, go.
There are some rights who guaranteed man but not women.
Mm-hmm. For example.
This is male privilege.
Mm-hmm. Such as?
Such as the workplace, workplace. There are some women cannot proceed. Women compared with men, women are not. Women is not. Women cannot proceed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are very, very close. It's a little more specific than that, but yes, basically right. And last one is safe spaces. And then the for women part is just because it's feminism, but safe spaces. How many people are familiar with that term? Safe spaces. I am.
It's an environment where like you're free from like discrimination or like oppression based on like your identity or like whatnot.
Okay, that's right. So could you give an example?
Ewha Women's University for women.
Okay, a women's university. It's like only for women. Right, okay, good. Yeah, okay. So that's what this part of this talk is going to be about. Like it's one issue. It's part of the sort of culture war between left and right. Very recently, maybe you read the news, there was a memo that a worker at Google sent, like he put it on the Google server. He said, oh, you know, Google, it's just such a closed thinking society. Like everything they do, it's like talking about how women need to have some special protection, or women have discrimination against them, or it's women, women, women. Why are they, like, they should just accept the fact that women don't like to work in technology because they're better at other things like nursing or something, right? Basically, I mean, it was actually really long. I didn't even read the whole thing. It was like 5 pages or something. But it was like a long complaint about why Google was trying to be a safe space for women instead of letting, you know, like men criticize women a lot and things like that, right? So, and then the guy got fired. So that's a whole other issue. That's like yesterday's talk about like Google itself. It's a company, it's a private company. As a company, what kind of space should it be making for people? Does it have to give that man freedom of expression, or does it have to protect women, or can it just make its own rules based on its own culture because it's a private company? So that's actually being discussed right now too. It's sort of related, but it's related to this topic as well, because women in Google felt like they were not safe. Like if this guy can make this memo on the server and criticize like the things that Google is trying to do to help women, then women felt unsafe at Google. And so several women complained, and so the manager fired the worker. And it's very hot topic actually. If you're going to the tournament, there might be something about the Google memo and feminism. So maybe that's something you can look at. But this is going to be sort of a basic concept lecture. After I finish this lecture part, I think I asked you, like anybody who has anything good, like if you want to show people, if Hung Chu turns on his like router or whatever you call that thing. We call it an egg in Korea, but I know that's not its official name. But anyway, you can even use this computer, you can show people video, or if you have something really interesting about feminism you want to present about. After I'm done, you can have a turn. So, here we go. So, let's start out with this. It's like a thinking question. You'll need a partner to talk about this. What's the question? What's the question at the top? Read.
What is controversial about these statements if said to a woman, especially if said by a man?
Okay, so talk with your partner. If you read each one and then, why is that controversial? Controversial doesn't mean absolutely wrong or absolutely right in every case. It means controversial. Risky, dangerous, maybe unsafe, maybe creating an unsafe space for that woman. Okay, everybody stop. You need more time. How much? 2 more times? 2 days? 2 years? Okay, 2 minutes. All right, everybody 2-minute warning. Ji-won says so. Don't blame me. Okay, everybody stop. All right, Ji-won. So, are you ready? All right, excellent. Choose 1, 2, 3, or 4 and tell everybody like why it might be controversial.
The first one, I think like saying those kind of words means like reflect the status, like if, for example, like it's kind of like evaluation of your body. So and it means also like it implies that there's certain like kind of standard that you should fit into. So like you're out of that standard, so you have to like lose your weight. Like, so I think that
so that is basically evaluation on something. And when you think about the mechanism of evaluation, first you have standard, and second you have power to evaluate someone. That's the problem of that sentence. First you have a standard, like you lost weight, and you have a standard, you have a weight standard, and it actually gives the woman the implication that you should fit into the society's like standard of the weight. And secondly, you have power to evaluate someone. This is clearly showing the power imbalance of the male and female. That's the problem with this.
Just like to add on, just also to a little bit of that is because the standard itself within society for women is very, very narrow. So kind of oppressed, like kind of having to apply this continuously to women oppresses them in the way that they have to conform to this very narrow, very small one standard.
Anybody want to add anything or ask a question? Hikari and Yoshi, what do you think? Is one maybe controversial?
My main discussion is that it depends upon the individuals.
I'm listening. I think everybody's listening. Yeah, keep going, keep going. We'll ask you questions if we don't understand. Hung too, or anybody in your group, if you kept discussing number one afterward, you had a little more about this one, right? In addition to what they said.
What I would think is that you don't usually say that to a man. You only say that to a woman. Even like if you're a man or you're a woman, you only say that to another woman. And like it simply gives the impression that you only you pay more attention to a woman's appearance than a man's appearance.
Although in Korea, strangely, like people say that to me sometimes. I think, but I never heard anybody in any country except Korea say something like that to me. So in most countries, I think, yeah, you would never say that to a man, but you would maybe say that to a woman. And like Yoshi said, oh, go ahead, you first.
Just to add, I heard another good alternative of saying the good words to your outfit. So if you want to praise someone's outfit, it's better to say oh, your clothes and earring or the makeup or the skirt. Oh, your skirt looks good on you. It's much more better than saying oh, your leg is so skinny. And directly, not directly to your body itself, but other clothes and more it's more better.
So do all the women here in this room at this moment, 4 plus 2 plus anybody else who identifies themselves as a woman? No. Okay. So any of the women, do you also think maybe this is a little bit makes you uncomfortable? You'd rather have somebody say, "Oh, I like the style of your skirt," or I think, "Wow, that shirt really makes a nice contrast to the rest of your outfit," or something like that. Would you prefer that, or would you prefer, "Oh, that skirt makes your legs look skinny. It's really nice." No? What do you think? Do you agree with Jiwon's suggestion, or disagree, or not care? Not care. Okay, I think that's what your point was, right, Yoshi? It depends on the person, it depends on the situation.
Maybe my expression is too direct. I agree with your idea because dual or so accessory. So if I say it's very nice to your accessory, your costume is more soft. My expression.
So anyway, I heard both Hung and Miyu's group, and also Hikari and Yoshi talking about number one, and Yoshi and Hikari, their first opinion was, oh, well, that's not controversial at all, right? So that's interesting, right? But now you think, oh, maybe it's a little controversial, right?
Just change my idea.
Right, controversial doesn't mean wrong, it doesn't mean right either. It means people are likely to disagree. It means that there's some kind of stress connected with it, right? Some kind of ideological tension or stress. So I'm just going to write down a few key words that I was hearing in the discussion also, because I think these might be good ones to remember. Let's see, like Hera mentioned like some kind of power. She mentioned like a standard. And then like what Hung was talking about, I think is even more like a framework. It's like a sort of even bigger than a specific standard, right? And then of course, like what Yoshi was saying is it is also relative to the situation, but that's what controversial means. Controversial, you know, if it was just totally wrong, people wouldn't say it at all. No one would say that, unless they wanted to attack you intentionally. And then you would just know, oh, that's my enemy. Right? But it's a little bit in an uncomfortable area in our society, that kind of statement. Anyway, so anybody want to talk about number 2? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I have an opinion. Yes, I'm working in the library as a librarian. Sometimes, some kind of, I look at the similar kind of situation. For example, accidentally find all the, the women watched in the underwear. But this is to say is so a kind of bravery opinion means it is a kindness. Like, don't you think so? If the women cannot notice that her own situation, the keep the bad situation that everyone look at. That to stop this situation, we have to brave to say. This is my opinion. This is a kindness.
Anybody who wants to respond, go ahead. Talk about it. You guys want to talk about it also? Okay, let Hannah talk first, and then after that, Yasu. Go ahead.
Well, I think your approach is really good, and I think also it is a good idea, but why do you think it's bad?
For women, I think it is a little bit hazukashii. Embarrassing.
Shameful.
When I was a childhood, my chucks in the pants chucks are open, and I didn't notice because some girls are very successful. This is
I think they both make sense. So, like as our professor said, there are 2 points, 2 viewpoints in the issue. So that's one point that is valid, I guess, on one side, and then I guess you want to say that or Yasu.
And we can, I think we can say some things before we don't judge with the women. The breast up is showing arbitrary or not.
I understand. Do you guys understand? You explain yourself. Like they don't understand.
One more time.
His point is some women just intentionally shows their breast drop to extra man.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't understand. I thought you meant something different.
Okay.
No, Daddy has something to say too.
What he said is that maybe some people actually use this cute item because this if you wear a T-shirt, this is for one color. But however, you can add color. So this is why this can be sold as a cute item.
Yes, please.
She has something to. Then why women want to show intentionally to the man with her bra strap? Think about that. It's the intention that I want to be sexy to him, right? But why bra strap has to be symbol of sexy? Why woman's breast always should be sexy? Like this is nothing. Like
Underwear is just a garment.
but when you see the bra strap, we feel a sense of uncomfortable, but at the same time it's sexy. But why should the woman's breast should be sexual thing? Because this is just my thought. Like that.
Another point I want to add is that the whole reason that it's a bit controversial is that it's expressing that like, oh, I think it's showing it may be uncomfortable for you, it may be uncomfortable for me, would you please hide your bra strap? So that means that the bra strap is related to shame, that you're not supposed to show it, that it's not supposed to show in public, and the fact that like the fact that you see that it exists causes the person who's wearing it to be shameful. So like having the fact that like a woman wears a bra just because it's more like comfortable for them like in their daily lives, and the fact that they like the women should hide it because it makes like first themselves like more shameful, and like men because they feel uncomfortable, it doesn't really like fit. Does that make sense?
It also did you heard about freedom nipples? Freedom nipples, the movement, feminism movement, freedom nipples. There's
like voice that the women like do not wear the bra because they think that bra is kind of corset, like that for the woman to I don't know.
To like basically imprison a woman's
Yeah,
body.
yeah.
So that
Bra itself is not necessary.
Yeah.
Maybe. People disagree. It's controversial for sure.
Yeah, it's very controversial.
For sure. I wonder, because this is also something I hear women say to women a lot. So when a woman says this to another woman, is it controversial? Something can be, right? I think it can be. For the same reasons. It's more controversial if a man says so because of all the things we mentioned before. Power, right? But especially the power difference. But even if a woman says, right.
In normal cases, intentional kindness.
Right.
But like it depends on situation. So like, oh, you love that trapped here, so kind of it's like controversial. But like,
So I think she's saying you could mean well, but the result could not always be like in the best possible way.
Yeah. And in fact, I have even another opinion. Like bra strap. Like I understand all these controversies. But for me, a bra strap, the strap part, like it's not even sexy. Like it has nothing to do with the nipple, actually. It's on your shoulder.
Right, but it leads to think about like bra.
Oh, but like it leads you to think about the bra. Well, not me, but that's maybe my personal feeling. Like it's just a strap. Like, you know, sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. Like, you know, sometimes you have a shirt that's like, you know, with a crew neck or something that your shoulder shows. Sometimes you have a whatever the other kind of neck is. No, this is the crew neck and that's the whatever. Anyway, right? So anyway, that's all just my personal thinking. But to get to the point, there's certainly stress again, right? And it's relative to the situation. And these whole things of power and standards for women and frameworks, they all apply. Also, I think people make different assumptions. Like we all had like so many different assumptions about what that bra strap means, right? But who has the power to make their assumptions be the standard, right? That just because we have different assumptions It doesn't necessarily mean that all assumptions are equal or that it can just be something free that everybody can talk about. It can be uncomfortable for people. So, like, in fact, I think during this discussion, like, some people were uncomfortable at some times, right? Yoshi, you also uncomfortable, right? But you said your opinion anyway. Well, that's, I mean, I think debating is not a safe space. It's not a safe space at all, especially in a competition. Like, nobody wants to be fourth place. Everybody has their ego hurt in debating. But that's one of the values of debating, because it allows you to talk about uncomfortable things, because there's a presumption that there's going to be stress anyway. There's going to be disagreement. And a presumption that people have just basically good intent, and we're a subculture where we sort of are somewhat close to each other, and so we have like a kind of a relative situation where we're assuming we're going to work together rather than be enemies, instead of this stressful situation where we don't really know. Okay, let me just move quickly because I want to give some time for other people if they have other topics to bring. And also because we want to have a debate and so on. So instead of having you guys discuss and comment, like just briefly, right, there are also sort of assumptions here. There may be just, it depends on how big the box is, what the situation is, of course, whether you know the person, don't know the person, whether the person looks like they're having trouble. But the assumption may be that women are weak, right? And you usually, or you would be less likely to say this to a man. And then Miss Kim, right? That group you guys were pointing out. Miss, Mrs. That's like a very old distinction in English that differentiates a woman based on her relationship to a man. So it's instituting a hierarchy right there. It's old-fashioned. People don't say Miss or Mrs. anymore in the Western world unless they're intentionally making a conservative statement. If you use Miss or Mrs., well, maybe because you know the person and you know that the woman is conservative and she wants that kind of a title. That's possible too. So it might not be controversial in that situation. But if you don't know the situation and you just, you see a woman, she looks young, oh, you must be Miss Kim. That's making a conservative statement. It's saying, I believe that women should be defined by their relationship to men. And so that can be very stressful for some women. So we have a word for this kind of situation, for this kind of statement. Usually people who make these statements are not trying to attack people. They're just saying it because it's a kind of thing you can say, because it's a situation where maybe you think you should say something. And we have a word for this that the feminist movement has given us. This is one of the big values of especially the latest wave, like they call it the third wave of feminism, like 2000 plus. It's given us new words to define women's experience. And not just feminism, but all kinds of like movements for minority rights. So that's the word, microaggressions, except I spelled it with 2 G's there. Inconsistent. Okay, anyway. Microaggressions. Let's read together. Go. Microaggressions are actions and statements, usually from a member of a majority group, that unconsciously stereotype and offend another person, usually from a minority. From a liberal point of view, the problem is that these microaggressions happen so frequently that they create a hostile environment for minority people. Stop, think about that for a minute. Okay? Go. Because they're often unaware that such a hostile environment can exist, the members of the majority are said to have privilege, i.e., the privilege to live more comfortable and stress-free lives than members of the minority. So this is an incredibly important concept that's been introduced to us by women's rights movements and minority rights movements of various kinds, around 2000 and later. This is something even in the late 20th century, up to the 1990s, no one had actually figured this out. But it's a really, really important concept to define why minority groups may experience difficulties that nobody in the majority is even aware of. So if you think about it, there may be microaggressions against men too. You know, like people may say something to a man that might be a little bit uncomfortable or offensive, or, you know, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, why are you crying? You know, boys don't cry, or something like that. Maybe that's offensive to a man, right? There are some, but there are a lot more for women. A lot more uncomfortable situations, uncomfortable phrases, uncomfortable actions. Even just like, you know, if a man opens the door and stands to one side, you know, you wonder like, oh, is he just doing that because like he's not in a hurry and I look like I'm in a hurry? Or is he doing that because he thinks he's some kind of knight who's trying to make some kind of like, you know, like fancy impression on me, and then do I have to worry about like this, like, you know, guy trying to like come and make some kind of proposition to me or something, right? So women face a lot more than men. I mean, I think certainly some people disagree. Conservative people disagree. They don't believe that microaggression is really a problem. Because if they are in the conservative group or in the majority group, or even if they're a minority but they're happy with their minority situation, like a conservative woman who's like, oh, I'm, you know, Mrs. So-and-so, I love my husband, I have 6 kids, you know, I'm really happy to be a housewife. If they're happy with their situation, they don't feel the microaggression. They don't feel the kind of discomfort. And so they don't acknowledge that it even exists. Like, you know, oh, why are you so worried about people saying you look thin? They're just trying to be nice. Oh, you know, if somebody says your bra strap is showing, he's trying to help you so that you can, you know, manage your image better. Isn't that good? Like that kind of thing. But many, many people in minority groups, because they hear these kinds of things so much, it's uncomfortable for them. So anyway, I think this is a good time to give the handout, because that's the key like thinking activity I wanted you to do right at the beginning, so you really feel and understand what is a microaggression. Like for me, one of the biggest microaggressions in my life, because I'm sort of a minority in Korea, right? It's when people ask me, where are you from? I've lived in Seoul for 25 years now or something. So, you know, like a high school student at a debate tournament or something, a high school student who lived in America for 12 years and is now suddenly, you know, studying in Korea at a debate tournament, like comes up to me and says, oh, where are you from? And my feeling is like, you know, goddamn kids, why are they so stupid? But, you know, I realize that that person's not intentionally trying to make me feel like a foreigner. But it's stressful for me. I never know how to answer that question if a Korean person asks me, where am I from in Korea? I usually say I'm from Ayandong. How about you?
Yes, sir. Could you give me one more?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I can. In fact, if you want, I can give you 2 more. No, okay. Okay, anyway, so yeah. So this is like a really basic concept, and I hope, because we talked about it so much and we had some examples in the class, if this comes up in a debate, you'll be able to really explain your point about it very well. We have various different keywords. Hera gave us like 2 really nice types of like criteria for the dynamics, or actually sort of, yeah, 2, and then Hung added 1. And then these kinds of things, like the fact that it's a relative situation, but it's stressful and people have different assumptions. This is how you can characterize that kind of environment in a debate. So if it's a debate about, do we need some action for like a feminist movement or something like that, well, here's one reason why we probably need some action. Anyway, moving on. I have a little bit more to say about this topic. So going on to safe spaces then. I think that's what's coming up next. Oh no, I have another little, like, just sort of interesting activity before that. So obviously, right, like I said, even men, or even people who are totally the majority, like if I'm in the US, like I was born in the US, so I'm a white man, you know, from the US, I'm totally the majority. You know, of course I can still feel microaggression sometimes. but not very much, because I'm the majority. So most people don't say anything that makes me feel uncomfortable or not normal. But this is just sort of an interesting test for yourself. Like, the more of these boxes you can check, probably the less likely you are to be feeling like a minority or feeling like you have some stress. So how about you? Do you consider yourself a member of a minority or a member of the majority? Check your privilege bingo. And you can look at the bingo sheet here. And
can you clarify what CIS is?
The second.
cis. Okay. So let's just go through, and if it applies to you, check it, and we'll see how many people have bingo. And how many bingos you have. I think I probably have like 4 bingos or something across this. Okay, so the first one says native English speaker. I can check that one. In the world today, right, English is a global language, therefore I am like the standard, the majority, native English speaker. Cis, who can explain that?
Actually, your gender, like you identify, like for example, if I identify myself as a female, and then my physical, like my biological sex is also female, it's same, so it's cis and not is.
Right.
But I think
Cis, and the opposite is transgender. Anybody who's transgender, you don't check that one. But if you, yeah, go ahead.
I think
Yeah.
this is a little bit dangerous because it is really sensitive to identify like this checking my gender in public.
Oh, well, if you don't want to check, you could just mentally check. That's true. But yeah, I don't know. This is like, it's not a safe space in debate to begin with. But if you feel threatened, sure, of course, you don't have to participate, right? But yeah, definitely, right? If the way people look at your body and the way your body was identified by, like, you know, the doctor when you were born, and you feel that way too, then that's like you're a part of the majority. That's cisgender. Okay. You know, in an ideal world, people just wouldn't be uncomfortable, but we'll never have an ideal world, so yeah. So, anyway, Ms. P. We're checking our privilege. How much privilege do we have? Thin. That one, I think you have to be your own judge, because depending on what your standard of thin or fat is, or intermediate, like, I'm never quite sure whether I should check that one or not, actually. I sort of feel like I'm a little bit fat, but I'll check it just because, why not? Okay, anyway. No speech impediment. Yeah, check that one too. Christian. Christian is the biggest religion in the world that controls the most money and most power. And that includes Catholic, by the way. When we use that word in English, Christian includes Catholic and Protestant and everything else. So if you're a Christian, you're a majority. In Japan, actually you're not a majority, but in the world you are a majority for Christian. Male, check that one. I don't have bingo yet, but I'll get it. White. Attractive. Again, I think you have to judge yourself. If you feel like, yeah, okay, most people think I'm attractive. Yeah, I think I'm sort of attractive. If you don't feel that way, don't check it. I'm not going to check that one. That's one, again, I'm not sure. Some people say, oh, you're so cute, or oh, you're handsome, but not that many people tell me that. So. In ancient time? You? Attractive? Well, if you think you're attractive. You know, it's a personal judgment sometimes. I don't think there's any absolute standard for any of these. Heterosexual. Yeah, check that one. Able-bodied. Except for my glasses, yes. Okay, so, able-bodied. Standard accent. Do you speak with the standard when you're speaking Japanese, whatever people consider the standard Japanese accent, or standard Korean accent, or standard English accent? No? Then don't check it. If you do, yes, then check it. You have privilege, because people won't specifically say, like, oh, you talk in such a cute way. Or like, oh, you sound like you're from, you know, this place. Tell me some words, like, you know, from there, right? I think that can make people feel very uncomfortable sometimes. No criminal record. That's maybe one you want to keep private, right? If you have a criminal record, but maybe not. Like, it would depend on why and what it was. Human, if you're human, as opposed to like an animal, right? you gotta check. Tall, there's another sort of you have to self-evaluate whether you're tall or not. I guess I'll check that one, but I'm not really quite sure. Mentally healthy.
Which is the measure? Which is the majority?
The majority is the one that's written here. Mentally
health.
healthy. Although that's a bit questionable, I think, but but again, make your own judgment on those things, right? Sure. You don't have to ask me those things. You can just do it. That's another one I'm not quite sure on, but I guess I'll check it. So, okay. Support a mainstream political party. Well, if you support it, you check it. If you don't support it, you don't check it. If you support some minor party or no party at all or whatever, don't check that one. Adult. For you guys, maybe you have to make your own decision about whether you're adult or not. For me, I'm going to definitely check that one. Okay. Born in country of residence. If you were born in the same country you're in now, that means you're part of a majority. So, wealthy. Again, there's no absolute standard, so you decide. I'm going to check that one because certainly on a global scale, I'm pretty wealthy. Probably top 10% or something in the world. Intelligent. You have to decide that one too. Employed. If you have a part-time job, I think you have to decide on that one too. Does it count as employed or not employed? Like, do I earn enough that I can consider myself employed, or is it just like a little bit of pocket money? But I have a full-time job, so I'll check that one. I have oh no, I still don't have bingo, but I'll get it really soon. First world, that means from a developed country, not a developing country. So Vietnam, I think, maybe don't check, but it's up to you to decide whether you think your country is developed or developing. I think Japan, Korea, and USA, or Korea, whichever one I'm from, I have to check developed country. First world. So, I have bingo. Okay. Anyway, well-connected family. Does your family know, say, like government officials or famous people or rich people? Do your parents sometimes meet with company presidents, or do they meet with politicians? That kind of thing. If they do, you have a well-connected family. If they don't, if the most famous person you know is your teacher in school or something like that, then maybe you don't have a well-connected family. So, not a redhead. That one's a little bit weird, but yeah. I guess redheads have some kind of, a little bit sensitive about things, maybe, for some reason. I don't really understand why that's privileged, but yeah, anyway. Definitely, I have double bingo. And last one, educated. If you're a freshman, I don't know. Maybe you don't check that one. But if you think you're educated, you got a very good education from your high school, and you already feel like I'm well on my way to being educated, you can check that one. So now I have triple bingo. I have 3 bingos. This one, and this one.
I have no bingo.
No bingos, okay.
No bingo.
No bingos? No bingos. Okay, well, if you have no bingos, then you should understand and appreciate why, feminist movement and other rights movements have brought us, some important and interesting ideas, because now you can understand why sometimes you feel oppressed. Why maybe you can't point out very specifically, oh, because this person did this to me, I have a disadvantage. But even if it's not specific, it's still a stress for you that you have to deal with in your life. And maybe majority people don't have to deal with that kind of stress, so their life is easier for them. So anyway, moving on. Right. Let's read. Are you ready? Go. Since minority groups like women suffer from microaggressions, as well as direct and indirect discrimination. Advocates, feminists, would say they need safe spaces where they can be surrounded by women only, who they can share their stress with more easily. Safe spaces could include women-only lounges or subway cars, women's clubs at university, or businesses that only serve women. Question: are safe spaces for women when men don't also get such spaces for themselves unfair? Aside from safe spaces, are any other extra benefits for women fair or not? Why? Okay, so why don't you just take 1 minute to talk? I do want to move pretty quickly, but I think it's worth thinking just a little bit rather than just listening to too much lecture. So go ahead, talk with your partners, the people near you. Okay, everybody stop. Okay, good. I'm glad you didn't stop instantly, but you finished your sentence. That's important. Yeah, okay, right. So this is just some, following up on that question, some of the possible alternative points of view. And actually, it's really controversial. Well, okay, even if we admit that women have more stress than men, but what do we do, right? So let's read. Go. People can oppose safe spaces or other additional privileges for women, such as affirmative action policies, for many reasons. Stop. Reason 1. Anti-feminists who don't believe women actually face discrimination in society. Okay, or number 2. Power feminists who think women have enough power on their own to overcome discrimination without any special privileges. Or 3, sexists and misogynists who think women should be treated differently from men or even as inferiors to men. 4, people whose own privilege makes them unaware that women even face special difficulties. So people are just saying, oh, why is this an issue? Why? So, okay, last comment. Even if you oppose safe spaces, note that you can still be a feminist if you think male privilege exists and women need to work to get closer to equality. Take a look at the male privilege checklist handout and see what you think. And I actually expect, this is the male privilege checklist. It's the last page. I expect all of us probably, because most debaters are somewhat liberal, most of us probably agree that male privilege exists. Most of us probably agree that women should try to get closer to equality. We don't need this checklist to tell us specifically, but it's still interesting to look at. There was a longer article that I took parts of, some of the key phrases. So I'll just read to you, and you can read along and then look at some of the things on the list itself. The male privilege checklist, an unabashed imitation of an article by Peggy McIntosh. Peggy McIntosh is one of the early feminist theorists who started talking about microaggression, safe space privilege, and so on. In 1990, so this is actually how recent it is, 1990, Peggy McIntosh, one of the first theorists who even introduced this idea before it became widely known. Wellesley College professor Peggy McIntosh wrote an essay called White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. McIntosh observes that whites in the US are taught to see racism only in individual acts of meanness, not in invisible systems conferring dominance on my group. To illustrate these invisible systems, McIntosh wrote a list of 26 invisible privileges whites benefit from. As McIntosh points out, men also tend to be unaware of their privileges as men. In the spirit of McIntosh's essay, I thought I'd compile a list similar to McIntosh's, focusing on the invisible privileges benefiting men. Due to my own limitations, this list is unavoidably US-centric. I hope that writers from other cultures will create new lists or modify this one to reflect their own experiences. And then there's some extra information. If you want to go and look for the original, you can do that. But so pointing out that men are privileged in no way denies that bad things happen to men. Being privileged does not mean men are given everything in life for free. Being privileged does not mean that men do not work hard, do not suffer. In many cases, from a boy being bullied in school, to soldiers selecting male civilians to be executed, to male workers dying of exposure to unsafe chemicals, the sexist society that maintains male privilege also immeasurably harms men and boys. So it's not mutually exclusive. I think, like, Tatsuhiko, you were sort of talking about that too. Maybe men need men-only subway cars also, because the whole sexist society that makes men harass women also makes men vulnerable to worrying about how they can even act or whether other people will be afraid of them or something. So anyway, several critics have also argued that the list somehow victimizes women. I disagree. Pointing out problems is not the same as perpetuating them. It is not a victimizing position to acknowledge that injustice exists. On the contrary, without that acknowledgement, it isn't possible to fight injustice. So the point of this list is to point out this is injustice and then make us think, what should we do? And so, yeah. So go ahead, take like 2 minutes, you can scan the list, and at that point, I'm done. And anybody else who wants to come up and introduce any topic related to feminism, you can feel free to take the floor. And then we'll do a debate. So you saw some of the examples of kinds of things that men can not feel stressed about, but women do have to feel stressed about. More examples. And I did have one other slide that I have on the printout. I guess maybe I should say a little bit about this one. So the question is, what do you think of this response to the idea of male privilege? So this is like a conservative man, an anti-feminist, probably even a little bit of a sexist and misogynist, writing about this male privilege concept. And he says, as a response to the feminist male privilege checklist, I'm going to codify the privileges that most, if not all, females enjoy. And notice that he has 97 of them. So his point is, oh no, actually, women don't have more difficulty. It's men who have more difficulty. Women have more privilege. Women should be the privileged. We should consider women the privileged ones and men the one who need more protection. But let's see what you think about his idea of women's privilege. Number 1, everybody ready? Go. From an early age, the opposite sex will be instructed never to hit me, but I may not be given the same instructions. However, should I strike males, I can expect not to be hit back, and any social penalties that occur from my actions will actually fall on the male. So this is a woman talking. What do you think? Does that sound reasonable? Is that a privilege women have? They can hit men and no one will think that they're wrong, but men can't hit them? No. A lot of men hit women. That's my thought too. Like, I think there are a lot more men who hit women, especially in families, domestic abuse, right? And?
Just clarification. The feminism is not just for women, it's movement for all. But it is just a clarification. I know, yeah, this is really important clarification. But in the domestic violence, actually the portion of domestic violence occur more, like female hit men.
Really?
But what I think scratch, but when male hits female in the domestic violence, they hit woman with what baseball bat and the ball, golf club, those things. So actually, we can say the intensity of the violence is much more higher when it comes to the male.
Hitting the female.
That's interesting. That's probably for Korea, because I never heard of anybody in like the US, like men don't hit women usually with baseball bats and golf clubs, but men will punch women a lot in the US.
Yeah.
US a
They'll,
lot.
they'll use hands
No,
a lot.
baseball
Oh,
bat.
baseball bat, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, anyway, but that's like, it's also like, it's very secret. And even if, like, it's true that women hit men more, let's say, that doesn't mean that we excuse women, right? Usually it's totally covered up either way, but if it's revealed, I don't think people excuse, right, either side, right? I think it's just, to me, like, but this is how conservative people think. They think that there is no disadvantage for women. Some of them even think there's disadvantage for men. To me, I can't understand how they get that feeling, but look, like all these are the same, pretty much. Number 2, if I'm not smart but pretty, I can marry and achieve the social and financial level of my husband without ever working. Really? What kind of world is this guy living in? I mean, sure, a few women who are not smart but pretty marry rich men, but I think that's such a tiny that's certainly not a privilege most women have, right? I mean, there are a lot of like ugly, stupid women who marry rich men too, because they're from the same social class, right? There are a lot of like smart, ugly women. I mean, it's just crazy. It's like some stereotype from the Middle Ages that this guy thinks is actually real life. Anyway, like this kind of thing upsets me. Like it really disturbs me when I see this kind of thing. But people do think that way. I mean, people do. Like it's hard to enter somebody else's world. That's another good thing about debate. Like sometimes you'll have to defend a conservative position, and it's sometimes hard to do that. But I think there's some value in at least trying to understand why would somebody think this way. It's hard. Anyway, right. And the third one also, like, because I can give birth as a woman, somehow I'm essential and I have something that society never can take away. I see, like, no, society makes me a slave because I can bear women and I'm the only one that can do it. They, like, force me to, and they put all the child-rearing burden on me as a woman. It's not an advantage, it's a disadvantage. But anyway, right, whatever, right. But so it's a controversy. And the people who think this way, they don't really acknowledge microaggressions, because even though in fact they are probably living in a very more comfortable world because they're men, they just feel like, oh, well, when there is some little problem, I deal with it. Why don't women just deal with it too? That's sort of, I think, their attitude. So anyway, for the debate, I have a list of motions. I'm not going to tell you which one I'm going to choose for the debate. I'm going to choose one of these for the debate. We should make up teams, and I think I counted 17 people, although a couple people are in the bathroom, so you'll just have to tell me who they are. And if it's 17, it means we will have 17 plus me, I think, 18. So that means we will have 2 judges. But if we have 2 judges, Hera, do you want to be one of them, or do you want to debate? Which way? You want to judge. Okay, Hongkyung and Hung, you guys are a team. So. Okay. All right, so those are the teams. Tatsu, oh no, oh, we already got him. Okay. Is there anybody else who's out of the room right now, but I forgot about? Or is this everybody? I think this is everybody, right?
Before we start the debate, can we we kind of prepared something?
Oh, sorry, I totally forgot about that. Yes, you can. Sorry. Okay, well, this will be the debate. Yeah, okay. All right, yes. Come on up.